My name is Jeremy Eugene. I'm a teacher currently at Hallsville ISD, and on Thursday I signed up to speak to the Houston ISD Board of Managers about the changes that they are proposing for their school's magnet programs. I did not get to speak to them. Instead, I was held in police custody on Thursday night through Friday morning through Friday night. I'll talk about what happened there at some point because there is a lot that Houston should know about what their school district is doing in the name of safety. But right now, I want to share what I was going to talk about at this board meeting, the proposed changes to HISD's magnet program. This is as important for people to know, if not more. And since now I have more than the usual 1 or 2 minutes that the appointed board gives before cutting people's mics off, let's really get into this. I've got 5 points to make about what's wrong with this magnet program proposal as it is, but first, let's make sure that everyone's on the same page. When you think of typical school subjects, you think of math, ELA, science, history. These are sometimes called core subjects. You might also think of electives like orchestra. But sometimes schools offer something special. A course like literary performance or Middle Eastern percussion or an engineering lab as an extension of a science course. These are found in magnet programs. To teach them, schools have to apply using a specific board policy showing that they can teach the course properly. And any schools with magnet programs will center themselves around themes. You might be a fine art school or a language immersion school. Students and their adults will know this school is going to offer a specialized focus in this particular area. Schools with magnet programs get extra funding, which can help support teachers who will be adept at teaching these kinds of courses. And, okay, this is not to knock core subjects or their teachers, because I am one of them, but oftentimes kids are more inspired by the special offerings. And when you've got a special theme to your school, with a number of special courses taught by proficient teachers, it inspires the way that teachers in even the core subjects approach our material, which integrates the whole magnet program into many aspects of the way a school runs. So I'm talking about magnet programs because the last Houston ISD board meeting had an agenda item which proposed to suspend the usual way that magnet programs are offered and run. But not in every school, just in the new education system schools. The NES schools are a group of 28 schools in the district which are slated to have a bunch of sweeping changes imposed on them all at once. If you've heard of the Takeover of HISD, but you're not sure what that is, think of this as the first major takeover initiative. All school-based staff from these 28 NES schools have been removed and must reapply for their jobs. And of these 28 schools, 12 of them have magnet programs. Hey, quick correction. I got this number 12 from Superintendent Mike Miles.
12 of the 29 schools of NES, 12 of them have magnet programs.
But it might be wrong. I'm thinking there's only 10 as far as I can tell. So anytime that you hear me say 12 in this video, know that it might be these 10 schools that you see up here. So why does the district want to suspend the usual magnet policy? Up until the board meeting, we didn't really know. We'd known that they were considering suspending the board policy since the previous week, but no one on the appointed board had publicly said why until the actual meeting. And this is point number 1 that I want to make about what needs to change with HISD. The transparency and communication of this replacement superintendent and appointed board of managers is unacceptable. We find out about their ideas in pieces and too late. If Starbucks said, "We're changing the way we do lattes," and you had to wait a week to find out what they meant, you'd be rightfully concerned. Especially if you couldn't contact anyone in charge of that decision. And if you found out by reading the paper that Starbucks' change is to replace the milk in the lattes with a cheaper water substance compound, you might go from being concerned to being angry. So, in a Houston Chronicle article which was published Thursday morning, that's the morning of the board meeting, it was revealed that Acting Superintendent F. Mike Miles is going to introduce a program called Dyad to the NES schools. Dyad started in Miles's charter school network, Third Future Schools, and what it does is give students a list of requirements that they must complete in a 2-year period. These include things like volunteer for community service or play sports. You don't need to be in school to complete many of these requirements, and that's supposed to be part of the appeal, that a lot of learning happens outside of the classroom and embracing it will make students more well-rounded. But Dyad also has requirements like learn graphic design or virtual reality, things that we usually rely on schools to provide strong, informed instruction on. And the Dyad program does offer courses that explore these activities, but it's not through teachers, it's through contractors. And these contractors don't need a teaching license. They can be regular people from the community, and Dyad is so open-ended with its list of requirements that a wide range of potential courses can cover a single requirement. During the board meeting, we found out that Miles is proposing all 28 NES schools have Dyad courses for 90 minutes, 2 days a week. And this is a very poor substitute for a magnet course. This info about the Dyad program didn't come out until the day of the board meeting, which resulted in 2 bad things. One, we know that the new guy is messing with some of the best stuff about our schools, but we don't know why or how yet, so we're angry. And 2, Miles can present this Dyad program as a suitable replacement for the magnet courses, since the appointed board is also new and doesn't seem to know much about either Dyad or magnets. Problem number 2 is this appointed board and replacement superintendent have to stop making decisions without consulting the public. In the middle of the meeting, Miles tried to act like he actually does have the approval of staff on his changes, and he did this by showing the appointed board a chart with some survey results about how much staff believes in this new process that he's doing. And there's some issues from jump, because only about half of the people he talked to even did this survey he showed, and most of them are not affected by any changes yet because they're not in NES schools. But even more worrisome is that these are results he got from surveying administrators, not the public or the students. Just last month, I was witness to a perfect case study of what happens with this line of thinking. In Westbury High School, a school with a magnet program for fine arts which has a decorated marching band program, the community caught wind that the most senior band teacher, Mr. Washington, was going to be let go. This sparked weeks of students and parents and alumni emailing the school, calling the school, and protesting. And when I came to support the students at one of the protests they organized, someone was driving by, saw the signs the kids brought, and immediately pulled their car over. They were like, "What? I can't believe they're letting Mr. Wash go. What happened?" This was an alum who graduated years ago, but they recorded themselves right there talking about how upset they were and how much this teacher meant to them. And that's the effect that a magnet program can have. When you're invested in finding teachers that are skilled at what they do and putting them in a supported program, they often do a great job. Now, there's good news in this story. The protests worked and Mr. Washington was rehired. But it took weeks of sustained pressure to get there, weeks where resentment towards the principal was growing and growing. After Mr. Washington was brought back, the principal held a meeting to explain her reasoning, and it mirrored Miles's reasoning to a T. She said that she needed to make some cuts, that she was looking for a replacement teacher who might do band and mariachi, and, importantly, that she did not realize how big an impact laying Mr. Washington off was going to have. The audience responded, "We could have told you this if you talked to us beforehand." This shows that magnet programs can be foundational to a school and its community in a way that even their principals can underestimate. It is vital to actually dialogue with the community and let it inform your decisions if you are thinking of making changes as big as the one Miles is making. Let me make something clear, though. I'm sure that some contractors leading Dyad programs in Miles's other schools are skilled at what they do. Some of them probably are even good at teaching without a license. But they don't need to be. And in schools with magnet programs, they do need to be. There is a difference between making a school centered on cultivating student passion in a particular focus, which requires teachers who have shown both skill in subject matter and a dedication to the art of teaching, as opposed to a system that just exposes kids to a lot of stuff they have to do. This isn't to say that following the policy automatically means a magnet program is working right, but two things that the board policy does ensure are that major changes are proposed with 1 year's notice for magnet programs, and that the community is involved in making those changes. This is what Miles wants to temporarily get rid of. I think it's important for people to get some perspective on what these schools are like, what they've built over the years, so that you'll understand what's at stake here. If you've ever worked at a job you enjoy for an extended period of time, you know that over the years, it builds up an identity that you can feel. It moves and breathes on its own, and it breathes life back into you while you're there. I can feel that when I look at the pages of these NES schools, see the things they want to share with the world about who they are and what they value, and what they've made. There's a sense of pride there, personal pride from both the teachers and the students in not just their accomplishments, but their everything. Their process, their collaboration, their spontaneous moments. There's pride in the school. Whereas, when I look at the dyad model, I don't want to be mean, but this is the dyad model. It's scarily similar in almost every school. The schools that have been running on this model for years don't even look different from the recent adoptees, and I think that's the point, to make a replicable model without distinction and insert it wherever you go. This is the antithesis of a magnet program. And it's also the antithesis of every NES school. I've been focusing on magnet programs because the board's agenda item was targeting them, but the truth is, all of the NES schools were intentionally built. Even without magnet funding and structure, these schools put together and built programs that they are proud of. Point number 3 is, we need to show everyone what this takeover plan is trying to get rid of. Teachers, principals, alum, and students and their adults, if your school is one of the 28 that fall under NES, you need to get the word out there about what you enjoy about these schools. Talk about the lessons that you've done or been a part of and how they made you feel. If you've taken pictures or videos of you or your child having good experiences at these schools, share them, post about them. If there's a lesson that you kept or that you remember, we need to hear about it. They are going to be gone if we don't do anything about this. If you're not sure where to start, please contact my organization, Community Voices for Public Education, and we'll help you get started. You can simply send us an email or a text saying the name of your school and that you want to help save it. We'll guide you from there. Also, if you are not at one of these schools, find one and check out their website. Leave a comment on their videos or posts or on Twitter or YouTube. Say, I'm from Heights or Northside or wherever you're from, and I love what your school is doing. Let the appointed board know that Houston is going to stand together. Their plan for the takeover depends on the rest of the district throwing the NES schools under the bus, and we need to show them that we're not going to let that happen. Point number 4. I'm going to direct this right at the appointed board. It is supposedly the appointed board's responsibility to push Mike Miles to explain and justify his ideas. Whom among you can show me what this dyad program has produced? Seems like you agreed to it, so what do the students who have gone through it think of it? They're adults, The contractors leading it, their coworkers? These are questions you need to be asking. Again, I don't doubt that some dyad contractors do a decent job with what they've been given, but unlike our current HISD schools, I can't see their work or connect with the experiences of their kids when I visit most of their sites. I mostly see the names of leadership, and I don't think that's a coincidence. Get Miles to speak on this in actual detail so that better info on this dyad program is put into the public record. The elected board would have done that, and if they didn't, we would have called them on it. Y'all are unreachable. What are you good for other than being yes men? Also, you cannot be in your positions if you're going to act this clueless about Houston ISD. When Miles was explaining magnet programs to you, the first example he chose was Atherton Elementary's program, which he reduced to 4 elective offerings: dance, band, choir, and piano. He said that he believes the dyad program could cover these.
At Atherton Elementary, what the magnet program at Atherton Elementary is dance, band, choir, and piano. And they have that in their elective offerings: dance, band, choir, and piano. So because we have not only elective, but the dyad program, I believe all those 4 things will still be offered to the kids at Atherton. We can accommodate those programs through the electives and the dyad program. In fact, kids will probably get more than that, or have to be able to choose more than that.
A board that was doing its job properly would point out that there are things he left out, like the coding and technology courses at Atherton. It would ask whether the teachers that are leading those courses are going to remain at Atherton or not. It would ask how are we going to protect the extracurriculars at Atherton, like the A-line. That's their celebrated drum line that has ties all the way up to Prairie View A&M University. Is that program now going to be led by a dyad contractor? Are situations like this one even going to be possible anymore? And how are you going to continue holding events like the Christmas program? An event Atherton put on last year which brought its choir, cheerleaders, drumline, and praise dancers together. Events like these take time and coordination to put together, which is why schools with magnet programs use teachers instead of contractors and have an application period to bring a new course into the fold of an existing program rather than rushing to redo literally everything over the course of one summer. Like, we do this. Teachers, we're professionals. We know what it takes to make this work, and this is not it. The public doesn't know what this dyad program will look like in comparison to what we already have, which is a problem you would be pointing out if you bothered to scrutinize Miles even a little bit. There aren't even 12 schools that have this dyad system currently, and Miles is telling you that he's trying to bring this system to HISD in 12 schools with magnet programs at once, and also 16 other schools. Schools which will all have many new teachers, new staff, and/or new principals. The identity of all these schools is being stripped from them, and you are going along with this. Now, to be clear, the schools currently using dyad in other districts also have other programs that haven't been proposed for NES schools yet. So Miles probably isn't going to try to cut and paste his other schools' models into the NES schools. And that's the point. What is happening to NES schools, and what is going to continue happening to them, is uncharted territory that is extremely unclear. At the very least, appointed board, your job is to say, hey, this plan is unclear, that's a problem we need to fix instead of going forward with it. But your stance thus far has been, Miles answered one question I have, so let's give it a shot. No. Y'all need to press as much as possible to make the unknowns known. And what is known, even now, absolutely unequivocally, is that the current proposal for the magnet programs at the NES schools is to sacrifice them. They are going to be a shell of their former selves if they're even recognizable at all. This tale that Miles has been spinning about Dyad allowing a school to have all the same offerings in their magnet program and more is a lie. You can't squeeze all these things into a 90-minute time frame twice a week, or replace teachers with contractors and expect the same output or better. The actual way to maintain these programs would be to keep them mostly as they are, led by most of the same people, and make 1 or 2 changes at a time until they are where everyone wants them to be. Instead, the plan is to bring new people in at an average salary of over $80,000 per position. Raising the base salary by this much means that keeping the same amount of staff is clearly not going to be the plan. Be honest. A substantial reshuffling of positions and offerings is underway. Things are going to look very different at the NES schools if this plan goes through, so we need to know, with specific examples, what things are actually going to look like under the takeover. Either find this out and tell us what you know, or just resign and stop enabling this. And finally, let's talk about the big question. Why is any of this even happening? Miles and Educational Commissioner Mike Morath have both said the goal is to improve STAR test scores in the district. This isn't complicated or opaque. The plan is we're making more time to focus on the STAR tests, and if that means sacrificing the magnet programs or any other thriving thing that a school already has built, so be it. If you've heard people say that the takeover is undemocratic and racist, but you don't know what they mean, this is why. Look at the demographics of the NES schools, the schools that Miles has chosen to dismantle with this plan, and you should get a clearer picture. And I know, some of you are thinking, but Miles and Morath said they're paying top dollar for the best of the best teachers to put them in these schools, raise all the test scores, and then the appointed board will leave, so it'll all be worth it in the end. I want to talk about how this plan looks from a teacher's perspective. And I can't speak for all teachers, but I'm going to limit my statements here to what I'd say the majority of us agree on. If I end up going wrong, and you disagree with any of this as a fellow teacher, please let me know, but I am going to try my best to represent us here. Here's what I have to say. Having good pay is great, but it's not all that we want. We want to come into a school that is functional, that has students who are already connected to the teachers and programs. Even if a school is far from perfect, we want to bring our talents and ideas to an existing structure and make it better, rather than teach a student population that has recently seen their entire school dismantled. That is an uphill battle that most of us don't want to climb. Also, we want the school we teach at to be engaging in ways beyond having high test scores. A working environment built mostly on measuring and rewarding individual performance is, at best, temporarily motivating, and at worst, a burden. We'll put up with it under the right circumstances, but it's not what we do the job for. I went to some forums to see what HISD teachers thought of the salary being offered for teaching at an NES school, and it was unsurprising to see comments like, "Don't do it, it's a trap." It was also unsurprising to see that the Glassdoor reviews for Mike Miles's Third Future Schools rates the network a 2.2 out of 5. Problems cited include high turnover, unrealistic expectations, not actually feeling like a teacher. The one thing that's consistently good is the pay. So who applies for a job like this? Not enough people to adequately staff 28 schools. Despite the pay difference, other HISD schools that aren't under this intense pressure to perform and don't have to quickly rebuild from the bottom up are going to be better places to work. It is very likely that HISD is going to face staffing shortages because of this takeover plan. If this goes through, it could take years to recover from, and the district is likely going to cajole teachers from other schools into coming to an NES school. If you're watching this video in August, and your kid was so excited to finally get to Mrs. So-and-so's class just like their big sibling did, but then you find out that Mrs. So-and-so doesn't work at that school anymore, she went somewhere else, there's a good chance that this is why it happened. Point number 5, this plan is very likely going to upend staffing to the point that it lowers the morale of everyone working at and attending the district and creates a staffing shortage, which leadership will then claim can only be fixed by closing schools. Every step of the way, this takeover process has made it less and less likely that the district will be appealing to teachers in surrounding districts. Most teachers don't want to come into a firestorm where the community has been angry at the school board for months. Most teachers don't want to come into a situation where the policy changes so often that they can't guarantee they'll even have their job next year. The teachers who do sign on for this are going to be aware that this isn't a stable long-term position, and they'll probably bounce when something better comes up. This is how I felt about the district's plan before being held in custody by its police. Who does want to work for a district like this? I don't think anyone does. Even if we work for the district on paper, the community is who we want to serve. Mike Miles and the appointed board are stripping teachers from their communities with this plan. They have an approach that is incompatible with what teachers want, and we're going to see that reflected in the staffing numbers. So, where do we go from here? I think making this a simple call is going to be the best move. So, we need to demand that any staff who was removed from an NES school be given the option to remain in that school and reconnect with the community they serve. The only workers who should be leaving are people who want to leave. If schools end up over budget by having 2 people in the same position, that will be the appointed board's problem to fix. Or they can resign and let the elected board handle it. Now, undoubtedly, some staff in these 28 schools are going to want to leave anyway. This has been a complete mess of a situation. Some of them probably don't want to put up with it anymore, and if they can find another, more stable position in the district, good for them, and they should go there. But what we're not going to do is go along with the plan to remove staff who are instrumental in maintaining the programs that the school currently has if we're doing that against their will. That's not right, so we're going to make it right. Once all the staff are back where they should be, we need to think about the info sessions that Miles and the appointed board has coming up. And I think the second call here should be just as simple as the first. We need to demand the right to make our own plans to improve our schools. Mike Miles' plans have shown terrible judgment thus far, and he's undoubtedly going to tell us about another bad plan that he thinks we need to do the next time that we talk to him. I know some people watching this video will think, my school has problems though, I'm ready for a change now. And that's real, but we need to use that energy to build and demand our own alternative so we won't be accepted, or so we won't be tempted to accept something that makes our schools worse. Students at Westbury High School showed us the power we can have collectively if we refuse to accept a bad plan and decide to push until we get something better.